Hi YouTube, Minister Mike here, and welcome to Sulfite Allergy, What You Need to Know. Over the next few weeks and months, I'll be placing on YouTube a number of videos showing how to make good recipes, delicious recipes, sulfite-free. Sulfite allergy is characterized by an intolerance to sulfites. What are sulfites? Sulfites are common preservatives used in various foods and medications. Sulfites have been used for centuries, mainly as food additives, but can also occur naturally in foods such as fermented beverages and wines. Sulfites are best known to cause worsening breathing problems in certain people when foods or beverages containing sulfites are eaten. Other people have experienced severe allergic reactions after eating foods or taking medications that cause sulfites. So, basic overview of sulfites. Maybe to illustrate the issue, I can go over my own experience with sulfite allergy. So this started in the summer of 2009. I noticed I was experiencing symptoms that I couldn't account for. I was having trouble breathing, especially at night when trying to sleep. That I seemed to be losing strength. I was at a bowling league at that time, and it was difficult to just pick up a bowling ball and throw it down the alley. And I noticed I started developing a rash, specifically on my neck at first, and then it spread to my shoulders, my chest, and my arms. And this was toward the end of September 2009 when I decided to do some research into the symptoms I was experiencing. So first thing I did, of course, like many of you do, went on to WebMD, started typing away furiously until I got down to the bottom of where my symptoms directed me to, and it basically said, we don't know what the problem is, go see a doctor. So made an appointment with my doctor, went to see him, and he had his computer with him, typing all my information in there. And he was asking me some basic questions about the symptoms I was experiencing. And I noticed they were very similar to WebMD's questions, their line of reasoning, and I thought, wow, this is pretty good. WebMD must have been done by doctors. This is wonderful. And so he didn't know what the problem was. He went out to get his big book of rashes to bring it in and see if we could figure out what the problem was. And while he was gone, I looked at the computer, nosy, to see what he was typing, and he is in fact on WebMD, having gone down the same path that I did, and finally ended up there at, you need to go see a doctor. So, that's nice. He brought in his big book of rashes, and we started looking through them. What I had specifically didn't appear as anything like shingles. To go see a dermatologist. Made an appointment, referred me to a dermatologist, so I went to see a dermatologist. He also looked at my rashes. He didn't exactly know what they were, so he wanted to do a biopsy. Now note that both doctors I had gone to, my general practitioner and then the dermatologist, neither of them had asked me about my diet or really any of my other habits, but specifically eating and drinking. Neither one of them asked me anything about that. So the dermatologist decided to do a biopsy and took a little core sample of me and stitched me up and then sent the biopsy off to the lab. A week later I come back and he's got the results. He looks at it and he says, well, Mr. McKee, it looks like you've got a dermatitis. And I said, oh really? Oh, what's that? He said, well, it's a rash. That'd be $300. And I basically said, oh, really? So that in your infinite wisdom is as much as you could come up with. But he did prescribe a cream for me to put on the rashes. Unfortunately, it was a sulfa-based steroid cream, and by that time I was so allergic to both sulfites and sulfates that I reacted to a sulfa-based medication, which is not unheard of, but it's pretty rare. And so over the next week, using this cream, of course the rash got worse and worse, and after going back to the doctor the next week, he basically said, well, tell you what, you hit it hard with that cream over the next week and we'll see how you're doing. And so on my way home, I thought to myself, this guy doesn't care a bit about you, and if you continue using this, you might just die something, whatever this is. And so over the next couple months, I did research into my symptoms, and I basically narrowed down my problems to several broad categories. It was Christmas Eve, 2009, when I was home alone. Don't remember what I was doing, but I was having a glass of wine. And so at one point, I took a nice big gulp of wine. I felt something on my neck. And I went into the bathroom, looked in the mirror, and I could see on my neck this welt, eventually about the size of half a golf ball, forming on my neck, in front of my eyes over a period of like 30 seconds, 45 seconds. And it was just this huge welt, and I basically knew. I looked at my glass of wine and I said, no. But it was true. I had developed a sulfite intolerance. Not exactly an allergy, but an intolerance, meaning I could no longer consume sulfites and have my body break that down to non-poisonous substances in my body. My body couldn't do that anymore. And so I knew what I had, and between Christmas of 2009 and New Year's of 2010, I did a great deal of research into sulfite allergies and causes and cures, and came to find out there is not a whole lot known about the causes and cures for this sort of thing, nor even a good test for sulfite intolerance. There may be one now as of the middle of 2014, but as of the beginning of 2010, there was nothing but a challenge test where you could sit in a doctor's office and they would feed you sulfite pills periodically, whatever. And over the couple of hours that you sit in the doctor's office taking these pills, they check you to see if you've got symptoms, the symptoms that I described, hives and breathing problems and that sort of thing. That was how they could determine whether or not you had a sulfite intolerance. And then if you did, they would jab you, presumably with an EpiPen, and you would be on your way. Though there's really not much out there in the way of medications that you can take for this. In my research, I found that the element molybdenum seems to be a key factor in breaking down, allowing the breakdown of sulfites in your body. So it may have been that I simply ran out of molybdenum. Sulfite intolerance seems to have a preference for acidic environments. If you make your body more alkaline, maybe take a teaspoon of baking soda every evening or something, that helps in providing an environment where sulfite allergies do not manifest themselves in the sorts of symptoms that I had seen. So I had to change basically everything that I ate, the detergents and shampoos, toothpastes that I've come to love and be familiar with over the years. Basically, it's an entire change in the way you live your life. So now, let's turn our attention to some food items here that we've got, and let's just see if we can find out whether or not these things contain sulfites or sulfite-containing ingredients. So let's start with the first one, just something simple, mayonnaise, best foods, real mayonnaise. And we look at the ingredients here, and we see the first one is soybean oil. Soybean and soybean oil are quite high in sulfites, so right off the bat. Water, whole eggs, egg yolks, vinegar. Vinegar is very high in sulfites, which is why nothing grows in these things, at least for the first year or two of refrigeration. Sugar, salt, lemon juice. Of course, lemon juice is high in sulfites. Calcium disodium, EDTA. and natural flavors. Beware of natural flavors, natural flavorings. Those could contain high levels of sulfites as well. So we have here a number of ingredients that make this incompatible with a sulfite-free diet. Okay, what's the next one we have here? A soup, Progresso traditional chicken barley. And what do we have in here? Ingredients: chicken broth, doesn't sound too bad, carrots, cooked white chicken meat, pearled barley, celery, peas, water, modified food starch, very high in sulfites. Food starches, potato starches, modified food starches, all of these very high in sulfites. Baked goods also very high in sulfites because they contain baking powder, which contains usually a cornstarch. Cornstarch being very high in sulfites. Starches in general being very high in sulfites. Then we go on to say tomato paste, salt, carrot puree, chicken fat, corn protein, potassium chloride, onion powder, sugar, soy protein, isolate, yeast extract, sodium phosphate, garlic powder, dried parsley, spice, soybean oil, natural flavorings. Egg, beta-carotene for color. Egg. I wonder why the traditional barley soup would have egg in it. But anyway, because of the modified food starch, this is also off limits for somebody with a serious sulfite allergy. Let's go to something else here. Bush's Original Baked Beans. Yum. Who doesn't love baked beans? And what do we have in here? We have prepared white beans, water, brown sugar being white sugar with molasses being very high in sulfites, sugar, bacon, salt, cornstarch, there it is, another starch, cornstarch, very high in sulfites, mustard containing vinegar being very high in sulfites, spices, onion powder, caramel color being very high in sulfites, garlic powder, and there it is again, natural flavorings. So, yet again, off the menu if you have a sulfite intolerance. Let's see what else we have now. Something like a barbecue sauce. This is, Bullseye Hickory Smoked Barbecue Sauce. And let's see what we have in here. Number one ingredient, high fructose corn syrup. Very, very high in sulfites. The number one ingredient, very high in sulfites. It's sad that high fructose corn syrup is the number one ingredient, though. Okay, tomato puree, molasses, vinegar, there again, very high in sulfites. Modified food starch, this is pretty much got it all. Natural hickory smoke flavoring, dried onions, mustard flour, spice, potassium sorbate to preserve freshness, and dried garlic. So, many of the ingredients in here also off the menu when it comes to sulfite intolerance. Very, very bad. So those are just some of the foods that I could find around here that contain hidden amounts of sulfites. They don't come out and say metabisulfite or that sort of thing, but they are hidden in the ingredients in these foods. So if you've got a real sulfite intolerance like I do, you have to not only make your own food, but the raw ingredients you buy, you've got to read the ingredients to everything that goes into your food, every single thing, and that includes medications as well. Because if you take something with a gel capsule, that gelatin, made of pectin or whatever other material they make it out of, is probably high in sulfites as well. So if you take Benadryl to alleviate your symptoms, try taking the version that is a tablet rather than a capsule, a gel cap. And so I think that's about it. We'll wrap up here. We'll go ahead and wrap up. And what I'll do is over the next few weeks and months, I will put together some videos, upload them to YouTube, and go over some recipes that I've come up with over the past 4 or 5 years that have allowed me to remain relatively symptom-free since the beginning of 2010. And this is 4.5 years now. So That's it. Take care. Post any questions you have, and I'll be seeing you on YouTube.